Okay, okay. Yes. We have, because it's part of the job. And as a technical person, your job is to solve the problem. So, but before we start, let's pray because we are inside the church and we are believers. So, Jesus, we thank you today. We thank you for the privilege you have given us to sharpen up our skills and so that we can be vessels that are fit to propagate your kingdom. So we ask today that you will open up our mind and understanding to learn, and we receive the spirit and power of retention in Jesus' name. For those that are here physically and those that are online, in Jesus' name we pray. You don't want to pray a very long prayer in this kind of gathering. Okay, just a little bit of introduction. I know many of us know me. I know many of us, but some are watching online that I do not know. Life sound makes sense. So my name is Emmanuel Bamishe Adiago. So some people knows me as Bamishe, some people knows me as Emmanuel. And just a little bit of background to why we are doing this. I think I just want to give you a background on, okay, who I am or what I'm doing. So I started audio in 2006 when I was in 100 level in Nigeria in University of Lagos. I'm sure some people that are watching us online, they know the story also. And one of the things I discovered, especially as it relates to church sound, is that um, only a few churches are taking their sound very seriously. And when I mean very seriously, in terms of investment, in terms of spending money, and investment in human capacity. So there is a gap in terms of the skills. And what we now resort to as a church, as a body of Christ, is we contract the sound to outside. So whether the company or whether the individual that is handling our sound is a believer or not, that really doesn't matter to most churches, right? So, and it became a concern to me personally. So I started doing research and, I picked up interest. And by the way, my first degree, I have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. I have a master's degree in electrical engineering. And I'm in the process of having a PhD in electrical engineering. So, in a way, I kind of understand and know what's going on. So that has helped me. And over the years, also, I've done some training. I trained with Maya Sound. Um, some people don't know Maya Sound. Some people know Maya Sound is a manufacturing company in California. I think Los Angeles or California. I'm not sure. In Berkeley, U.S. So they manufacture speakers, and their speakers are quite expensive, high-end speakers. So I've been trained by Maya. I've been trained by personals. I understand some of these things to a very good extent, and that God has been helping us to do this. And just to conclude introduction, I run a business here in Saskatoon, provide services for house of worship, events, anything audiovisual. You can call me. So let me just advertise myself a little bit. But I think the main point is to empower church audio tech. Now, someone asked me that, okay, why church? I said, I think that is my first uh, primary of assignment first. Because the truth is, according to statistics, if you see a professional sound engineer today that is doing it professionally, that is making a living out of it, chances are that the person started from the church. More than 95%. You can look anywhere, all the top guys doing live sound, mixing, working in the studio. Because, to be fair, the church has really, really come a long way. And I'm trying to encourage the people from in my home Jerusalem to join the train, and then to train people, to empower people, to make sure people know what is going on and how does these things work. So today, I'm not going to do a lot of background talk because sound can be very complex and it can be very simple. So I will try as much as possible to go through my slide. I prepare a slide, although I don't want to make it public yet. So I'm still working on it. It's not yet ready for the public. So I'll just use it to guide myself. But what we'll do today is at least to have some basic understanding of what mixing is. What constitutes a good mix, and how do we achieve that? Now, the reason why I said something that sound is a little bit complex. It's complex because it's not just only one thing that guarantee that you have good sound. There's at least 4 major factors that we look at. And the reason why I'm doing that is at least just for us to have the background knowledge that, okay, why is the sound in our church not sounding the way it's sounding in another church? I don't know if you have heard that some people will come to me, especially if you're a volunteer. And I'm using the word volunteering very carefully because when it comes to volunteering, we just believe, just be there and just be available. But it's also very important that we have the skill. You know what's going on. You are able to undo the situation if anything goes wrong. I overheard someone saying that sometimes the speaker on the stage will just go for what is responsible for that, right? That's what we call feedback. So I'll be chipping in some of those terminologies, and then we'll get familiar to it. What is feedback? What is front of house? And all those things. So I have the mixer. This mixer, and okay, I almost forgot. I just want to thank the church authority, the Grace Sanctuary, RCCG. This church has been very consistent in, making sure, trying to improve, especially from the leadership. And shout out to Pastor Titus. He has been very particular about the sound, and from a sound person point of view, it's encouraging when you are in a church that they place premium on. Okay, we want to make sure we have good sound, and then they are doing everything possible to work towards that. That's very commendable. So thanks to the leadership of the Grace Sanctuary, and I'm using this also to reach out to other people that is interested in something like this. That okay, you can sponsor programs like this. We can come in and train people. It's very important that people know what's going on. Not just okay, I'm just volunteering. I'm in technical unit. We just come. They tell us what to do. Sometimes it's good to pour ourselves to it, right? To improve in our skills, and then because I know most of us where we work, sometimes every 2 years we do training. We do career progression training, things like that. So it's also not because we are working for God or we are not paid for it. And you don't know wherever you get to that eventually these skills will become something that will be monetized. Like what I'm doing today. I never dreamt that one day I'll be making money out of it. And people are making good money. I hope we'll get there one day. Praise God. Okay. So having said that, so if you're watching us online, okay, I didn't put my contact details online, but you can reach out to us. At least you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube. Just put a comment, reach out to us. We'll get in touch and help you. And if you're having issues with your sound, we can travel too. You can ask us to come. You can go to the US, anywhere in the world. The world is a global village now. So enough of advertisement. Let's get back to business. Okay. So what constitutes a good sound? Number one, I will first tell us, all of us that we are seated here, if you're watching online, you are included, that as a sound person, your most valued instrument, who can guess? The room, okay. Someone said the room. What's your most valued instrument? What do you have that you're here? Let's give him a round of applause. He got it. That's you're here. In fact, the standard is at least every year, every 2 years, you should see an audiologist. Is it audiologist or the specialist that check your hair out to know whether you're here? Because some people are partially deaf and they don't know. I mean, many people are walking partially deaf because in your hair you have about 20,000 cones and rods. I'm not a medical person, but at least by virtue of what I do, I get to know some of these things. And sometimes some of those things are not responsive to some frequency. So what is frequency? All those things, I'll be chipping them in. And please, if you have any question, just stop me and ask. Now, this is not going to be the first and the last. We're still going to have subsequent training because there is little we can do within 2 hours. That's the truth. I mean, I've been doing this since 2006. So, I mean, if I'm going to school since 2006, I should be a senior professor, right? So I would try as much as possible, but we can't let everything in a day. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. So what constitutes a good mix? We are coming to your point. You raised a very important point. So you're here. And the rule of thumb is, if it sounds good, now, sounding good is also relative. Now, let me now tell you, how do you know something is sounding good? There's what we call reference. For you to be able to mix something good, at least you should have a reference. What that means is, you should have a target. You should have, okay, I want my mix to sound like this. Please, I don't want to be speaking over our head because I know I sent out a link for people to register, and the purpose of that is just to know, okay, the kind of audience I'm going to have for this training. Okay, and I think majority of us are beginners, so I'm trying to not speak as a professional, and then we are wondering what is it talking about. So at any point, if you don't understand what I'm saying, just say, bros, come. Okay, some people might not understand that. Okay, but just call me to order and ask a question. Okay, so what constitutes to a good mix? In the next 10, 15 minutes, we are going to talk about that before we go to the box, because the truth is that everybody wants to push the fader, everybody wants to do the cool stuff, but what is behind the cool stuff is a lot of work. So we won't be able to talk about the background. Today is a mixing workshop, so we are going to be focusing on, okay, all things being equal, everything has been set up. They just call you to come and, adjust the fader, do some tweaking, things like that. But I'm not, okay, you can see that. So we set up this so that at least you can see what I'm doing. And then I have what I call a virtual sound check here, so that at least we'll use that to do whatever we're doing. So 4 things, at least. 4 things, at least. So what do you think? You mentioned something the other time. The room, very important. In fact, it's the number 1 here. Now, why is the room important in getting good sound? Especially for where some of us grew up, where I grew up, we just believe that, okay, let's just build a beautiful church with glass and marble and make everything shining and let everything looks fine, let everything look so fine. But we never consider, so when we finish building our church, we're going to buy speakers, right? And then we'll just put the speakers and they will just sound and everybody will be fine. But no. So if you see, I actually wish I could now connect my PowerPoint because I put some pictures there. How many of us have seen Lakewood Church? At least the picture, Pastor Joel Austin. Joel Austin is I think it's in Texas. Yeah. If you look at churches in those kind of caliber, those people are very deliberate about how they build the church. In fact, they employ the service of an acoustic engineer right from the time when they are constructing their church. And the purpose of that is to make sure that the room is suitable for live sound. I'm not an acoustic engineer, but at least I have some knowledge about what should be. So we are not going to go into detail, but just for information's sake that you can have the best gear, the best speaker, and you can have the best hand too. Of course, if you have the best hand will suggest to you that your room is bad, it's terrible. Let's do something to correct it. And it's not always bad. If it is bad, there are things we can do to correct it, to at least to bring it back to what will work for us. So room acoustic, very important. And what is the room acoustic? Is the way your room interact with the sound that is coming out from your PA. So when I say PA, I'm talking about speakers, your tops, your sub. So how the room interact with that sound is very important. There are some rooms that are very terrible with mid-frequency. So you have to do a lot of EQing in the mid-range to make it sound good. There are some rooms that are highly reverberant. They high frequency in terms of high frequency will just be bouncing up and down. Now, for example, in this kind of room, if you notice, these are parallel walls. We have two parallel walls. And this is not always the best for sound. And that's one of the reasons why we decided to hang the speakers. Now, if we didn't hang the speakers and we put them on poles, by the time the sound is going to the wall, is bouncing back, that going back and forth is going to create a terrible reverberation in the room, and it will affect the intelligibility of the sound. So as you can hear me clearly now, you might be struggling to hear me. Some frequencies are going to be too much, so we have to do a lot of EQing and stuff. So the reason why we hung them is, you see, this thing is pointing at the people. So before the sound go around and bounce, at least the chairs will have absorbed some, the people will have absorbed some. So it's, and then of course, hanging speaker gives you a level of uniform SPL, sound pressure level. Like the person in the front is not sounding too loud than the person at the back. That's what hanging speaker will give you. So we'll probably get into some of those details eventually. So room acoustic, very important. Now, out of 4, we've mentioned 1. The second one is the kind of audio gears that you have, audio equipment. Now, this also is very tricky because I thank God for technology and thank God for information these days. Where some of us are coming from is just, let's just buy speaker and we call it engine. Where I came from. Let's buy speaker and engine. Some people call it slave. I don't know who the master is. But anyways, it's just let's just buy and then just connect it. It's not to connect wire, but it goes beyond that. So if you go into a church and they have a good sound, someone somewhere has taken time to deliberately, buy good gears. Now, good does not necessarily mean expensive, although good gears are expensive. Do you get it? That an equipment is good doesn't necessarily mean we are going to break the bank to buy it. But most time, if you want to get good quality sound, it's expensive. Let me give you an example. There is a church in this city. I was speaking with the front of house engineer. Who is the front of house engineer? Front of house, FOH, the person that makes the main church. Because we'll get there shortly too. That in an ideal setting, you're not supposed to be using the same mixer. The word ideal is in capital letter. You're not supposed to be using the same mixer you're using to mix the house. When I mean the house, that's the main church. And the musicians, the stage, the instrumentalist, and the live stream. But in most cases, where many of us fall into, at least from experience, we tend to have just one mixer to do 3 jobs. And that's why it even becomes more tricky. And that's why you need to know what's going on. That's why skills, understanding is very important. We can't joke with it. Because technically, the person on the board is doing the job of 3 persons at the same time. So imagine you don't know what's going on. You just look so confused. So, audio gear. Now, for example, thank God for companies like Behringer. Behringer has saved so many lives. For example, this mixer was designed and launched in 2009, 2010, I think. And this mixer has saved a lot. Because for the price, what you're getting, the value you're getting for the price of this mixer is huge. It's enormous. Like Behringer X32 globally is one of the most common digital board you can find anywhere. And I mean, before its time will go, it's going to take some time. Although Behringer has come up with another one that is even blowing everybody's mind. But that's a discussion for another day. So, gear. You need to, and then some gears are, you need to know what's the application for each equipment. Some speakers are designed to work for some specific purposes, right? So if you are using them for different purposes, you won't get the best out of them. You won't optimize them. Now, the next one, so at least those 2 things we've talked about, the room acoustic and the gear, these are inanimate factors, right? We can correct them, we can buy new gear, we can, trade gear, like, okay, we have this system, want to upgrade, okay, let's go to maybe a retailer store and they'll give us some money for it and we'll buy a new one, things like that. But the other 2 factors are human dependent, and they're very important. In fact, I'll say they are really more important than the first 2, even though everything comes together, because our goal is to get good sound, right? Our goal is to have good sound, to be able to, I'm proud of the sound we are producing. So the 3rd one is what we are doing today, technical expertise. If you have good acoustic, you have good gear, state-of-the-art equipment, but you don't have the necessary skill to operate it. It's just as good as nothing. That's the truth. That is the truth. In fact, if you are familiar with the Air Force will tell you that it is more expensive to train a pilot than to buy a plane. So that's why they tell you if your plane is going down, eject. That's actually the idea behind that. That we can't afford to lose you. We can afford to lose the plane because we'll buy another one. But to train you, your experience, your hours of flight, it's not something we can buy. So that's why knowledge is very important, even in the Bible. And that's why somebody like me comes in, because I really, really, really wish in the church we have people that are knowledgeable, people that know what is going on, people that are excellent. So excellent. So that's that. And the last one, for those of us that have been doing this for a while, you will understand that this also is very important. I put it here, skillful and reasonable musicians. Skillful, and in fact, I'm planning actually to have a seminar on this. Probably maybe after we do 2 or 3 seminars together, we'll invite the choir to come. Oh my God. We can't joke with this. If you have a skillful keyboardist or bass player, but not reasonable, it's going to give you a lot of work to do. So you see people, maybe he's playing bass, and he's playing too loud. And you don't want to kill him too much on your board. Like, my brother, can you bring down your volume? Okay. Because I play instrument a little bit, so at least I know how it feels that sometimes you just want to be jamming and just be feeling yourself, but you're not playing for yourself. You're playing for the church, right? I mean, people are listening to what you're playing. So if you are not reasonable, or if you're a vocalist, you just grab the microphone and just think you can just grab the microphone and just sing. No, it doesn't work that way. There are techniques. Your microphone is your tool, so you need to know how to use it properly. So those things contribute to it. So if, let's say, you have good room, you have audio gear, you have good technical people, they know what they are doing, but your choir is terrible, it's going to be a lot of work. It will give you, you might be able to achieve something, but it won't be as if you have people that are music, that are the choir, I mean, your worship team, if they are reasonable with you. And and that's a human factor, right? That's why it's also very important. So it's also important that our worship team, they have training, they are trained, because they are not professional musicians, they are not professional singers. I mean, in churches these days you see professional musical instrumentalists, maybe professional drummer, but except there are churches that pay their worship team. There are churches that people do this thing full time, and that's another discussion for another day. We are actually not ready for that as a church. Let me just leave it that way. But you see those four factors, very important. So all things being equal, let's say we now have those four. Now, how do you build a good mix? There are different techniques. Now, mixing is like painting. That's why I said good sound can be relative. But there are some points you get to that everybody will say that, that sounds good. Do you understand? You get to a point that some people will still say, I don't like the way you sound. It doesn't sound good. But there are some points you get to that nobody will be able to contend your mix, that at least that's decent. That's a decent mix. And what you're trying to do, let me just quickly backtrack. I have something here that's very important. Your job as a mixing guy, as a sound guy, please question, if there is question, let me know. We've not gone into the technical aspects, but one of your responsibilities is to make what is good. You should make it sound great. Do you understand? That what is given to you is good. So the barest minimum you should be achieving to take in is what is good. That's why you need skillful musicians. That's why you need skillful vocalists, people that know how to use their microphone, people that know how to sing, people that, we are not going into details, but the minimum that in an ideal situation should be given to you is a good sound. Your drum should be tuned, because you can't correct that on the mixer, essentially. So the source that is being fed into your mixer should be reasonable good. So your job is to take that which is good, you make it great. In fact, if you want to take it a little step further, if you are fortunate enough to have a great sound, like great sound from the drum is well tuned, you have a reasonable drummer that is giving you, is hitting his notes properly, consistency in drumming, and you have great pianists, they are playing well, they are jamming, everybody is good, the bass is slamming, and you have great sound. What you should do with that great sound is to make it excellent. Do you understand? So that's why the skill comes into play. So you go from, we call it GGE, good, great, excellent. So have an excellent sound. I mean, if you are very good at what you do, you can take good and make it excellent too. I mean, that just shows the level of proficiency when it comes to mixing. Now, like I was saying, mixing is like painting. Now, when you want to paint, when you see a painter, they have something in mind they want to communicate to you, right? So that's something in their mind is their reference. Now, how do you create a reference as a mixing person, as a mixing sound engineer? How you create a reference is listening to good sound. Listening to good mix. Let me use that word. And how do you know good mix? Okay. But let's just note that. You listen to good mix. So, for example, personally, when they say, someone sang a song and I'm listening to it, I'm not just first listening to, okay, maybe this song is The lyrics are good. That's not the first thing I'm listening to. Sorry. It's just because of the nature of my work. I'm listening to, okay, how does the kick relate with the bass? So I'm analyzing it in my mind. Okay, oh, the kick is very punchy and, slapping, and the bass is coming, after it, and then the snare is on top of it, and the vocal is up front. Okay, so I'm looking at it. Okay, so listening to that is creating something in my mind that, okay, maybe next time when I go on the board, I may be able to achieve something like this. Now I have a reference that I'm working towards. Okay, the BGVs, the background vocals, they're a little bit behind. Okay, maybe if the mixing engineer can bring them a little bit forward, you are analyzing them, and we are going to at least see some of those things. Hopefully today, we have 15 minutes more, but I will ask if you don't mind, we can go a little, maybe 30 minutes. We're supposed to stop by 2, right? But we started an hour late, so, and I apologize for that. So, what was I saying? BGV. Okay. All right. Yeah. That shows you're following. Okay. Now, so when you want to mix live, there are 3 major categories of live mixing. We have the front of house. The front of house guy is the guy that is usually in an ideal situation is with the congregation. If you see those standard bigger churches, pardon my language, but bigger churches, right? You see that the mixer, the front of house guy is usually with the congregation, somewhere in between, and is feeling the sound directly from the PA, so he knows what's going on. He's the one that is doing that. There is another guy close to the stage. Now, let me just quickly say that now, at least for those of us that are here, crossover night is coming, and I'm thinking it's all Redeemed churches in Saskatoon. If we're in the last one we did 2019, yeah, we had something. We actually used 3 mixers or 2, but this time we're actually going to use 3 mixers and do something standard. So 1 mixer will be for the front of house. In fact, if you see bigger setup, bigger gigs, you see 2 mixers on the front of house. And the reason for that is for redundancy, just in case 1 mixer pack up. Imagine you are maybe in a $500,000 show, and you are the contractor, right? And as the show is going on, you are the person that collect the contract. You are making good money, and the mixer on the front of house just pack up. What do you think your client will do? So usually, in a standard setting, we have 2 standard digital board or analog board. I don't know. I mean, it's digital board these days anyway. You have them here, and then so that and everything is patched. So if one pack up, immediately you are switching to the next one, and the show is going on, right? So you have one for the front of house. You have one for the monitor guy. So the monitor guy is the one that makes for your band. He makes for the vocals. He makes the vocalists. If they are using in here, he makes their in here monitors, and the band, the piano. Make sure that all the musicians are happy. Yes. And then the third guy is if you are doing broadcast. If you are doing live streaming, so it's the guy that makes live stream. So imagine 3 different people are doing their job. So compare that to the guy that is just using one board to do these 3. And if you are actually very dexterous, if you are very skillful, you should be able to achieve something good with one board. I mean, that's the expectation, right? That's why we are doing this. All this made equal. We should be able to use this board to mix for live stream and everything. I hope the sound live stream is still good, right? Okay, so we're good. Okay, because we shouldn't be talking of live stream and what we are broadcasting is not good. That doesn't speak well of us. Okay, so those are at least those are the 3 main aspects in terms of mixing. Now, in terms of sound engineering, there are other aspects that we are not going to talk about today, but because it's a mixing workshop, I really want us to have an understanding of what it means to mix. Now, when you get on a board, at least know this thing. Very important. Any audio gear that you have, any audio equipment, ideally will have input and output. So if I give you any gear today that you have never used before, the first thing you look up is, okay, does it use power or battery? Okay, once you certify that, okay, maybe it's using battery or power. Okay, where is the input and where is the output? If you know that, you are almost getting there, right? So the board we are using today is X32, very popular digital board. And let me quickly say something about digital board. You see, thank God for technology. It has really, really helped us. Because what this digital board does is that in the olden days, in the 60s, 50s, 70s, 80s, that digital board has not become, I mean, if you have a digital board, then you probably a very big person, you have a lot of money. That was when digital electronics started, becoming very popular. But in those days, you have a big analog board, and you now have another big rack. I don't know if you have seen those things. That you now have different processors. You have equalizers. You have all of them here. But thank God today, all the things that you have in the rack, they're already embedded here. So if you're investing in a digital board, what you're doing is you're even saving money and, getting more quality. So, how do we build a good mix? Now, if you look at this, I'm not sure if this is showing on the... Can we see that? Okay, yeah. The first part that is very, very important in building a mix is what we call the gain or the preamp. Some people call it preamp. So if you look at this, if you can see this part, you see it's called configuration preamp. And when I click view here, it shows. So this is the channel I'm using to talk. So you can see, at least I'll use that to demonstrate. And I have something here, like I have a pre-recorded multi-track recording that I can use to explain, at least to explain some things. Let me just play something here. So this, we call it virtual sound check. For example, if I'm setting up here now and there's no musician here, I have something pre-recorded that I can play back and use it to do my mix, to create my mix, that when the musician comes, I don't necessarily need to start from the scratch. So even the event can go on and I can just be doing it as the event is going on, right? So it's very helpful and very, very useful. So I have it here. I don't want to. I really want to take this thing precept upon precept because I need to explain how I'm even taking the sound into the mixer. But let's keep that for today. At least I really want us to get something that we'll be able to remember, and then at least for the next time. So this thing is playing. If I unmute this, you will hear the kick coming in. Can you hear the kick? Although it's already mixed. I've already done some work, but I can take it out. I don't know if the guys online are seeing me. If I just... That's the snare. You can hear that, right? Although it's not... Can you hear that? When the piano comes in, you see that it gives some kind of flavor, right? There is that. Let me see if I have the vocal. Okay, this is just essentially instrumental. Let's see if we can get to somewhere where we have the vocal. Let's say that. Now, we will try as much as possible to just do some mix, to just do something. This is like a rehearsal, I think. I can't really remember exactly, but you can hear the piano, you can hear. So let me mute all of them, and then hopefully we'll get to a point where they do the kick. Now, before the kick comes in, what are these buttons for? This button, I said when you want to build a mix, you have a reference, right? You have something you are building towards. So how do you get to that reference? These are the things that are supposed to help you. This button, okay, what does this do? What does it mean? Now, talking about gain, you have to know at least 3 levels of signals that we have in audio engineering. We have at least 3 levels of signal. We have the microphone level, we have the line level, and we have the speaker level. What you're dealing with here at the stage of the mixing is the line level, and that is where this preamp comes in. Now let's take microphone as an example. What's happening here? This microphone is what we call a transducer. What it's doing is it's converting the acoustic energy. What I'm saying, my voice. You see, as I move the microphone away, you can't hear me. When I move it back, you can hear me. What it's doing is the vibration of my voice. As I'm talking, I'm pushing here, in and out, in and out. So that vibration is what is going into the microphone, and the microphone has what we call a diaphragm. It works like our hair, like the reverse of our hair, just the reverse of a speaker. So the microphone vibrates on the diaphragm, and what it does is generate electricity. The electricity is so small that if I connect this microphone directly to my speaker, you won't be able to hear because it doesn't have enough power to push the speaker. So what the preamp does is, or the gain, is to bring it to a line level. At that point, I have cable connected at the back of this mixer from the microphone receiver, right? So that is why we have cable, because it's electricity. Some people don't like seeing cables, and they want to hear sound. Well, we've not gotten there yet. Maybe we have everything wireless, but that would be chaotic anyway. But that's why we have cables, because we are really actually transmitting power, electricity, voltage, current, for those of us that understand some of those things. So it comes in as a microphone level. Now, for this mixer to work effectively on that signal, it has to be pre-amplified. So that's why we have a preamp. Now, one of the things that determines how expensive a mixer is the design of this preamp. So if you see high-end mixer, like mixing board that are more expensive, chances are that the design of the preamp is more sophisticated. It has better quality. Do you understand? So now, what does this preamp do? It boosts my signal to line level, and it does something. Now, when you are building your mix, this preamp is like your foundation. If you get it wrong here, chances are that you are going to have a terrible mix. And what that means is you're going to be clipping. Now, let me show us something here. Now, can you see this signal that is going, right? You can see that. If I solo my microphone, like we call it pre-fader listening, or solo in this case. So if I solo, you can see something on this side, right? Immediately I hit the solo, I turn it off, it goes off, right? Immediately I hit the solo, it's coming. This thing is telling me the level of my signal, of the microphone, pre-fader, before fader. So if I put... Can you see that? Okay. Do we have any question online? We engaging people? Okay, so you can see. Now, the good thing here is this thing is telling me when I want to build my mix, I will solo it and I'll see. So I will now turn this either up or down. Let me select it. Okay, so if I turn it up, you see that it's as if I'm increasing the volume. I'm boosting what is coming in. Now, I will get to a point that, you see, it's almost feeding back, right? Probably because I'm even very close to the top speaker. But the rule of thumb is, when you're building your mix, all things being equal. Now, I've skipped so many steps because Bruna we spent almost 3 classes, right, talking about those rules because we've been spending time together. Yeah. So we've skipped so many things. What we're just doing is we're just assuming all those steps have been done, right? And then we just want to mix. At least, usually, as volunteers in church, this is probably the step, because someone has come and done the installation. We don't even probably know. It's just for us to come and mix. That's why I think let's quickly start from here, at least. And then, from here, we can now backtrack a little bit to understand some of the basic, what is going on. Because sometimes, what is installed can go wrong. And if something goes wrong, you don't know what's happening. So we are building a mix, right? So preamp, our gain, some people call it gain. Is another word for it is gain, and I will tell us why it's gain. That's why, as a sound engineer, sometimes a level of physics will go a long way to help you. I forgot to mention that too. That as a sound engineer, you need to get familiar with musical instrument. You need to know how should a piano sound, because if you don't know how a piano should sound, you won't be able to mix towards that reference, right? So in a mix, that's why you listen to good mix, like sounds that are properly mixed. You listen to how the piano sound. Okay, maybe when I go to church next time, I will try and make it sound like. Do you understand? That's progress. That's how you make progress. How should the bass sound relating to the piano and the drum kick? Things like that. So, because this is a workshop, we are just jumping all around. We are not really building this in precept. But look at this. So this is very clean in terms of what is coming in. By the time it starts getting, let me do something here. By the time it starts getting very high, can you see? I reduce what is going to the speaker so that we don't have a feedback. But if you see my gain is at 45 dB now. By the time I start mixing this, I'm setting myself up for disaster eventually. Because by the time we start doing additive and corrective mixing, things are adding to this channel that I'm mixing. By the time it gets out, let me go to Hope. Now look at this out. Can you see two things here? Two different signals. You see here in. Let me see if I can zoom in. Zoom into that, because that's also very important. Yep, I think that's good. Okay, that's it. So, see if I can fine-tune that. Is it clearer? Okay, well, I think we can work with that, right? Now, but by the time the audio online is not being affected, right? I don't think so, right? Because everything's connected together. I really didn't have much time to do some separation, because I just want everybody to go, because it will be a bit hard for me to be adjusting too much. Now look at that. Now if you notice somewhere here too, something is happening here, right? We'll get there hopefully today. If not, we'll in our next class. But at least we are making progress. So if I want to start my mix, I should look at these. Some people say this actually might still be okay, but for my application, for where we are, it might not be okay. It might be too much. Because if you look at let me zoom back now. If you look at my output fader here, this thing has shifted. Okay, yeah. If you look at my output fader, I had to control these to affect what is coming to the house. This is my live stream. This is my house. I just did a matrix mixing. We'll get to understand what matrix mixing is. But at least let's assume I have good gain structure. What we're doing here is we are structuring the gain. We're doing gain structuring. We are telling the mixer that for this channel, don't allow whatever is coming in shouldn't go beyond this or beyond this setting. Although it can go beyond if I shout now, it might go. That you don't have control over. Do you understand? Do you get? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about. The last factor we talked about. What's the last factor we talked about? The musician. Because let's say you do sound check now, and this person, I set this one up to. Okay, this person is singing. Okay, yeah, singing, and he enters the spirit. Or she enters the spirit and begins to shout. And you have done your gain structuring. There are ways to actually address that also, but these things have limitations too. Their efficiency is not 100%, right? So there is a limit they can get to that. Whatever you set here, if the person that is singing, that is talking, is not reasonable enough, will not be able to to do that. Okay. Okay, you want to zoom in. Like this? It's blurry. Okay, let me check it. You're the expert in that. Okay, let's give it up to our expert in videography. Yeah, I think it's better. You see that? That's why you can't know everything in this life. You just stay in your lane. To the side. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Look at that. Beautiful. Give it up to her. Thank you. Okay. Now, I hope, do we understand that? Now, it almost looked like we are increasing the volume here or reducing the volume. Well, we can call it volume. But what we are telling is this thing is like, you know, the pipe that takes water into our different houses. You know, when the city is sending the water to our area, it comes in big pipes, right? So from that very big pipe, everybody will now tap their own into different units, into different houses. So this thing, although it's not very practical, it's like your pipe that is going to your house, you can increase the diameter and reduce the diameter. So that controls the amount of water that goes into your house. That's probably what this is doing, gain structuring. So you notice that if you put this thing too high, in fact, you by the time this is getting to this point, it's beginning to clip, there's really nothing you want to mix because you're already mixing clip. And maybe next time I'll bring a board at least just to show pictorially, at least to have a mental picture of what is happening there. The signal is already clipping off. So your information, your audio, some part is already, and it becomes uncomfortable. It can damage your speaker. So gain structuring is very important. That is like you're building foundation. So once for each channel, so we can try to quickly do that for each channel here and look at what we have here. So now, because of the source of our sound here, the sound is coming from a computer. It's not coming from the normal XLR cable that we connect here. This thing has changed here on this channel. So let me show us. Let me see if I can zoom in. If I can zoom in. If you notice, if you see this place, if it's clear, you see gain. So by the time I go to the channel that is coming from the computer, you see that it changes to trim. The difference between gain and trim, they actually do essentially the same thing. The reason why this is trim is because it is a digital signal that is coming in, not analog like this one. So usually when it's a digital signal, you have trim. But technology is improving. Some sophisticated software, we have both gain and trim. What that means is you can increase what is coming in analog, but by the time it comes into the mixer, you have an analog to digital converter that has converted it to digital. So you can also boost it again digitally using a trim. So if you see a Behringer Wing, that's the latest baby that has just come out now. Behringer Wing is so sweet. Oh my God. Thinking about Behringer Wing as a sound engineer is sweet in my heart. Because what they did with that mixer, and they've not finished with that mixer because they are updating their firmware every day. And it's just amazing, especially with the price. Many of you might not understand what I'm saying, sorry. But it's just interesting to see that kind of innovation. Like, it's a Behringer product. It's a bit bigger than this. It's more professional than this. And it took them about 10 to 12 years to actually come up with that after this. So Behringer then designed another mixer since 2019. And they brought out Wing in, I think, December of, and since 2009, 2010. And they brought out Wing, I think, late 2019, early 2020. So we got one last year. You can imagine how happy I was. If I were like the first set of people that got it in Saskatoon or in Canada, because I spoke with dealers. So let's stop fantasizing with being going. Now, so let's build our structure, our gain structure. So I'm on the first channel. If I solo it, let me unsolo this, and I solo this one. So this is showing me the level of the kick that is coming in. Now, let me quickly mention something. I should zoom out. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. I think let's just leave it like this. I think we can manage with this for now. Trusting God that our next meeting will have it more properly set up, right? And everybody will be much more happier than this. Okay. So now, we're on the kick. Now, usually, I don't want to be distracted into routing. Routing is very important. We'll touch about that next time. Let's just try and see what we can, at least if we can build something roughly now, and we'll continue from there next time. So this is the kick. We have selected it. The person playing the kick is already kicking it, assuming, but we are using this thing. Now, another factor, human factor, is if you have a very lousy drummer or indisciplined drummer. I'm intentionally using this word because it's very important. As a musician, you have to be disciplined too. You're not here to scold musician, but you don't want me to get there. I can be very passionate about it. So what that means is, in fact, this is very common with either bass guitarist or electric guitarist that are using guitar amp. When you do sound check, they might put their level in 2. When the show starts, they'll put it in 10. So, and they've messed up your mix, right? Okay, you have a question. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's why I actually put this one, so that you'll be on record. Whatever you say, don't mind me. Just continue.
So during live mix.
No, use so that people. I think it's working. Keep talk.
Okay, so during live mix, my question is, sometimes the kick sounds looks to be clipping.
Okay.
And sometimes I have problem with whoever is playing. Then I kind of drop, the gain.
The gain, yep.
On the kick.
Mm.
But then I have this guy that tells me, well, it doesn't really matter because what you're looking at is the output on the main.
Okay, you're referring to this side,
Yes.
right?
No.
Because if you look at, you see in and out, right?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So that's what you're really.
That's what
worried
matters.
about. That's what matters and all that. So he says you don't look at if it's clipping or not. So my question is, you're saying it is not good to have sounds clipping.
Yep.
So
What is coming?
Can you
Okay.
clarify that?
Thank you for asking that question. You have just took us a little bit ahead. Now, there are some things on this bus on this mixer, we call them bus. So this mixer is like a 16 bus mixer. It has 16 buses. Buses are like highways. So they are where you send your signal to from your input. So I can decide to send my channel 1 here to bus 1, bus 2, bus 3. So, and I can control how much I send to them. But this gain, in most cases, okay, you have to initiate this stereo bus too. This gain, by the time you are clipping here, what you are doing is you're not giving yourself, number one, headroom. Because ideally, if your speakers are well tuned, everything, all things being equal at that point, to the point of mixing. Because, like I said, so many things have gone into place before you even start tweaking. But let's say everything is fine. If you are clipping at the input, remember you have not done anything about processing all your compressor, your EQ. You've not done anything about EQ. You've not done anything about that. Please, I'm planning to stop by 2:30. Is that okay? Yeah, okay. This is 2:13. We just manage with that, trusting that next time we'll start on time. I deeply apologize for that. Now, let's just quickly explain this. If what is coming in is already clipping, number one, you don't have much headroom. What that means is, now, I was going to explain what gain means. Gain in physics is the formula, gain is equal to output over input. So when you divide the output, the input by the output, or how do you speak in English? The formula is just output over input. Now, when you are at unity gain at 0, because 0 is your unity gain, how is 0 unity gain? Log of 1 is 0. And this scale, if you look at this scale, is logarithmic scale. So there is a little bit of mathematics, so when I said but let's just say that we understand what I'm talking about. Now, usually when you are doing your gain structure, if your PA is on and everything is on, you put your fader at 0. At least what you're doing is you're just setting that, okay, all things being equal, if during the show I need more volume. So if your gain is set properly, let's do this. My gain is set properly, and I'm not clipping at 0. That means I can go down if it is too loud, and if I need more volume, I'm still coming back to 0. At the point where I need to be going above 0, that's not a good sign. In some cases, you might need to go above it, but it's telling you that your mix, something is wrong with your mix. Because what you're trying to tell the channel is that, give me more than what I put in. Do you understand? That is, so when you go, because this is like the output, right? This is like the input. So when you go more than unity gain, you're saying that my output is now going to be less than my input. At that point, some of it, you are introducing some, what we call electronic noise. By the time you are going, so if you say, let this one clip, if this one is clipping, and let's say we don't have any processing here. Let me shut down all this one. We don't have any processing here. And we put it at unity. And this one is clipping. What is going out also will be clipping. Because this channel that we're working on, input and output, by the time this is 0, input and output will be at the same level. That's what unity gain means. Because you have 1. That is, output is equal to input. So let's try and see it here. I really need to go to where the kick is pumping. Okay. Do I have kick there? I think I have kick, yeah. Now, listen to this. Can you hear the difference? When I put in all the processing, this is dry signal. Now look at it. You can see that here and here, they are the same thing by the time the kick is coming in. And this is at unity. So by the time I put it a little bit higher, you'll see that the output is more than the input, right? That is not ideal. That shouldn't be. That's why your gain structuring is very important. So what you're doing when you're doing gain structuring is that I want to put it to a level that I don't necessarily need to go beyond 0, but I can go below it if it is too loud. Does that make sense? Yeah. So eating clipping at your input is risky. Yeah, it's just reckless. That's what I'm looking for. It's very reckless. It's like you're setting yourself up for failure when in terms of mixing, not failure in life. Do you understand? In terms of mix, achieving something, because when you want to have good mix or great mix or excellent mix, it has to be clear, it has to be clean. The definition, there's what we call definition. So when you look at camera, you see camera, they said high definition, right? There's definition in audio too. That's why we'll get it. You have 4K audio, you have 44.1K, you have 98K. So if you look at higher resolution board, they work at 98K. So you can't compare the how crispy, how detailed. Do you understand? But all things being equal, with this you can achieve. So with this gain structure is good if this drummer maintains this kick. Although there's what we call dynamic also, which we're going to get shortly. So that is gain. Do we understand gain structuring? Very important. For all your, so that's why you need to do gain structuring for all your channel, for all your input. So let's see this. Now, look at my snare. Can you see the snare? It's clipping already. That is dangerous. That is too much. So look at that. I think I have good gain structure now. Because when you are mixing, you don't want to be coming to gain every time. Your gain structure is supposed to live. That's why you have faders. Now, what's the relationship between fader and gain? Let me just quickly say that. Now, I said gain is like you have control of the diameter of the pipe that brings water to your house. That is, you can increase the diameter, you can reduce the diameter. What this does is your tap. That I can increase my tap a little bit. The diameter is constant, right? That is what's coming in is constant. It's set already. But here I can now control, okay, if I want to wash plate and I don't want to pay plenty bill, I'll just open my tap small and wash plate. If I want to have my bath, I don't want to play. Some of us that are watching online might not understand this. Where we are, you pay for water. And it can be expensive. Or for those of us that are watching in Nigeria, if you on your gen, your fuel switch, you can just turn it a little. So that's what this fader does. So, and the fader controls what essentially goes not outside, but on this channel, how it goes out to any post fader output. I just spoke a grammar there. Post fader, we'll look at post fader later. Like I said, there are so many things to learn. I hope this has been making sense so far. Yeah. That's as a sound person, that's one of the qualities of a good mixing guy is effective communication. No, you don't want to be rude. You don't want to be okay. You don't want to be rude. Because the truth is, as a mixing guy, because the job can be very overwhelming and you are dealing with so many things at a time, you can become very cranky easily. You can become very offended easily. It is very easy. So that's why we need the Holy Spirit. I mean, that's why we're doing this in church, at least to understand all the dynamics to it. Some people can be very stubborn. Let me use that word. Because we're supposed to be working together to achieve very good sound, right? As a sound guy and as a musician, you're supposed to work with me, and so that we can make the worship experience for the congregation pleasant. You don't want people to go back home with headaches and stuff. If you need to reach me, just, okay. Do you understand? So what you do is you communicate to that person. You let the person know that, okay, this. I know many times that doesn't work. Sometimes you need to take drastic steps and reduce the gain of that person. Because, number one, you're also responsible for your PA speaker. Because if your PA board gets damaged, it's going to be on you. You are the mixer. It shows that you don't probably know what you're doing. Do you understand? So there are a lot of things to hit that. That's why I said, and I told Bruno that by the time we get to some level, we need to invite the choir. They need to be in this seminar. They need to understand what is going on. It's very important. Because the truth, what we want to achieve is a good mix. We want to achieve something that all of us can be proud of that we produce, right? Okay. So, does that answer your question, sir? Okay. Yeah, communicate, persuade, let them understand what is going on. And, of course, eventually, sometimes you need to reduce the gain. What is coming in? Reduce the gain. I mean, when the event is going on, you might not be able to do the persuasion. You might just use your discretion to just bring down the gain. But ideally, that's why we do sound check. The purpose of sound check is for everybody to be on the same page, okay? And then, for example, if it is a very musical church that they really play premium on music and they understand the dynamic of music. So as a mixing guy, you are in the rehearsal with them, or you are doing sound check for them. So you know at this point the keyboard goes up. That's why you have fader. At this point, the keyboard, that's why you do some of those things. That's why, some people will say, just set it and leave it. And no, live sound is not like that. It's not deterministic. It's very stochastic in nature. For those of us that are that no probability. Like, anything can happen. That's why you are there to bring things down, bring things up. Because music, there's some very dynamic music that the sax need to come up at a point. You bring it up. When it's done, you bring him down. But some of our people, they just want to stay up there, and that's not musical. That's why, as a sound person, you need to be music. You need to have at least a level of music too. Do you understand? So, because it helps you. Sometimes musicians don't even know what they need. So it's your job to also help them to say that, okay, I think, can we do this? Can we not impose them, but just let them know that this thing can be done better and we can achieve better results. Because ultimately, we are all working together. Do you understand? So that's the gain. Now, here in the gain, there are some buttons here. I think we may not go past the gain. We have 6 more minutes. Even though, if you leave me for 5 hours, I can continue like this. You see, I've not opened book. They say, lie away. I mean, I've been doing this for a while, so I know what's going on. Now, look at this. There's a button here. Let me see if I can zoom in to this guy. Yeah. Now, we're still dealing with this guy, this place here. So there's a button here. There's a 48-volt button. And there's something like a circle and diameter, right? And there's what they call low cut, and there's this. So what are these things for? What's the 48-volt for? Does anybody know? This 48 volts, what do we use it for? What's it called? This is called phantom power. And why it is there, you notice that it's at the input also. This is 48 volt. This thing can electrocute, can shock, you can feel it. How many of us have held some microphone and the microphone is shocking you? How many of us has anybody experienced it before? That when the microphone cap touches your lip, you feel electric shock. Chances are that it might be a ground problem, it might be a phantom power problem. This is a phantom power. 48 volt is relatively high. You can feel it. Now, what this thing does is there are some inputs that require external power. For example, most common example is a condenser microphone. A condenser microphone or an active DI box. There is these are some of them we'll probably eventually visit. But what is a condenser microphone? For example, your microphone here, they are condenser microphone. In fact, when we're doing the installation, it was so funny. I connected them, they didn't work. I'm like, okay, Pastor, we need to return this microphone. I totally forget that I didn't read their manual. So that's one thing you read manuals too, as a sound engineer. So until I turn on this 48 volt, if you check your mixer, if you on these 4 microphones, this 48 volts, if you turn it off, the microphone will not work. Because this microphone requires 48 volt extra power, and it is on the input. So this is powering, through the cable, is powering the microphone to work. So that's what phantom power does. It's like another extra power. So not all channel requires this, right? Except you are using a condenser mic or an active DI. Something. Can I get a bottle of water? I've been speaking for the past many. Now, okay. Now this is a phase. They call it inverter here. It can be a phase. You can use it for phase shift or phase change. It's for phasing anyway. And where we use this, let me just give you a very classic example. I then bring my board. The board will have been a very good illustration. Now, let's assume, where is that microphone? Can I have that microphone? This actually might be a perfect, okay, check 1, 2. Okay. Let's see, for these 2. Now, you see, I'm using 2 microphones. Thank you. God bless you. How many people do we have watching online? 6 people, okay. Because 8. On the Facebook, right? YouTube, Is the Facebook working? Is YouTube? Is the Facebook working? We didn't set it up. We're almost done. It's 4:33. Oh. Okay, I think the time are different. What time is it? I have 2:29 here. 2:29. Okay. I just want to finish with this first part. You see, we still have this part to go. So we'll definitely. I was planning that we'll do it next week Sunday, but I think it doesn't work, right? Sunday doesn't work. So probably first Saturday in November. One of the first or second Saturday in November, we should do this again, right? Yeah. And so if you're watching us on live, so Grace Sanctuary has been very gracious to us. That's why they are Grace Sanctuary. Yeah. Because the truth is, to put this thing together is, if we have volunteers, people, it can be expensive too. And then it's knowledge, and knowledge is not cheap. So I just wanted to explain this phase. Now let's just try and see if there is going to be a difference. Now if you're miking a source twice, for example, a very classical example is snare drum. In some cases, that's why we are doing this. I'm really happy for those of you that will be available and are willing. When we are doing setup for crossover night, it's a huge setup. You can come around. It's a very good avenue for us to learn, to know what's going on. How all those big events you see on TV, how do they set them up? It can be complex, but if you know it, you know it. So it's simple. So we can have snare top and snare bottom. In this case, we only have snare top. But if you want to get the best out of the snare, if you want to also kick, you can put a microphone inside the kick in, kick out. Do you understand? So it's going to sound different because you are capturing all the dimensions of the sound that is coming in. Now, imagine if I'm hitting the snare, it's the same sound that is going to the top and bottom. So I'm generating the same signal, most likely in phase. Most likely. Now, if they are in phase, for example, I'm using two microphones now. My voice is going here. If I put them at probably the same distance, the audio they are generating is most likely going to be in phase. Now, by the time they come into the mixer and the mixer mixes them, if you notice, you can hear some hollow sound. In that region, that frequency, there is a huge summation between these two. So, either a huge summation or cancellation. Now, when two waveforms are going in phase and they sum together, what you have is cancellation. When two waveforms, that's just physics jargon. If you are a physics student or something, you will understand it very well. If that's why pictorially it will have been very great, but let me just explain it and we'll dramatize it and see if we can get it. So when the signals are coming from the same source at the same time, the same distance, because sound also travels with time, right? So if what is coming out of my mouth is hitting this microphone at the same time, at the same distance, they are going to be in phase. Now, by the time they are in phase, they are in phase, and they now come into the mixer and they mix together, there's going to be cancellation. So if I have two signals of the same amplitude in phase, by the time I add them together, I will have 0. But if they are out of phase, by the time they add them together, I'll have more. That's summation. So if I now let me try and one of these. Can you hear? It's quieter. Can you see the difference? I just put one of them out of phase. Probably, maybe they were even out of phase before. So where do we use this? I'll tell you where we use it, and we'll close. Let me put this out of. You see, they are back together. I put both of them out of. I inverted both of them. So I'm getting the same thing as if they are like this, right? But when I put one of them out of phase, let me even see if I put this other one out of phase. It gives me the same result. Can you see that? That means some things have cancelled out. So it works better if both of them are, if I didn't horn this. Do you understand? Now, because I don't have an analyzer, a spectrum analyzer to know what it is, I use my hair here to hear that, okay, this thing is better. It sounds better when I did not press this. So when I'm mixing my drums, in fact, we use this. If you see someone that is mixing drum and uses this, that person knows what he's doing. that person is a professional mixing engineer, at least maybe first level of professional, but that person definitely know what he's doing. You won't see someone that is mixing and you don't just use this randomly. The reason why it's very common with the drums. Okay. Let me just. So if anybody has, this is usual for question, but I will close now. Sorry, I'm sure we are enjoying it, Sabi. Right? Should we continue? Let's just close. We'll close. I know it's Saturday. Some of us have some other thing. Now, as I will begin to wrap up. So we've done this, right? Now, how do we use this in drum? I use this in drum. This is like almost the last thing. By the time I've cleaned up all my drums, I've mixed everything. So I will go to each channel. When all the drums are playing, I will press this, listen to it, press it again. If it's, for example, if I'm on the kick channel, let's say I'm on the kick channel. Now, kick is playing now. Let's even do the practice. Let's assume I've done my drum mixing, right? Let's assume I've done my drum mixing. Now, I'll come to my drum. I'll do it. It doesn't make any difference, right? I just leave it. In some cases, let me go to my snare. I can't hear any difference. I really can't hear any difference. But in some cases, some of the instruments are out of phase or in phase. So by the time you initialize this, it cleans up. It just sounds better. Because, drum has different components. But when you are mixing it as one instrument. So all of them have to work together. So in some cases, because of phase issue, they don't. So what you're trying to do is to try as much as possible to correct that. So you use this. So maybe next time when you are mixing drum, you try and check it out and see, okay, does this affect? And we may not notice it because we are also playing back digital. I'm not really sure. Now the last one here is the low cut. This low cut is a lifesaver. Oh my goodness. Low cut is a lifesaver. Now, the reason why I'm not happy with how this microphone is sounding, because we've not done any EQ, we've not mixing, we just use this flat. But at all, we put a low cut. What's this low cut or high pass? Some people call HPF. In some mixer, you see HPF, high pass filter. Here they call it low cut. Low cut. What it means is you're cutting the low end. You're allowing the higher frequency to go. So I'm cutting to 60 something here. For vocal microphone, you can cut as much as 200, depending on the type of microphone you are using. I cut up to 213 now. You see, this is sounding as if I'm using phone. So depending on the type of microphone, in fact, each microphone has their own frequency response too. Don't worry, we'll get there some other time. But this, you use it to clean up the low end. The unwanted low end. It helps you to clean up your mix. Like something that is not supposed to be in the mix, you just clean it up. So that's the low end. We use it a lot with the vocal microphone. Vocal microphone, you clean it up. So, with this few points of mine, welcome to the introduction of mixing workshop. Do we have any question from online, from any question? No question. Okay. That means the teacher is doing a great job, right? Or we don't understand everything. I loved it too. But does it make sense? Do we? Yeah. So you see, we've only done this. In our next class, we'll get to EQ, the dynamics, and then we now start talking about the output, because we're still dealing with the input side, how this mixer takes in signal. And hopefully we are able to set up quickly next time and get ready. At least we'll spend the first 1 hour talking about routing. Okay, how do you route signal? Because it's very important. In fact, routing, you can't mix without understanding how routing is done, especially when you're using one board for your stage and for your live stream. And then we now talk about different type, different style of mixing. I was watching one recently, and it just makes sense to me that I'm like, okay, maybe I should come and do it for you guys. Mixing in groups, so that for live stream. And also, what people have been using also for live stream these days that's it's getting common is mixing in the box. Instead of, okay, we know that we only have one mixer, right? Buying another mixer might be expensive. This mixer cost about maybe 3,000 Canadian dollar, 3,000 plus. So instead of spending 3 extra thousand to buy another mixer, why can't we mix in a box, in a computer, in a DAW, set it up, which I already told you that I'm thinking. That one might not cost you more than maybe 1,000, a couple of 1,000, 1,500. So you have saved some money, and you are able, in fact, that one is more flexible, although with problem with relapse. So in our next class, we'll talk a little bit on that. So we'll touch on that. I will let you know what are the pros and cons. But it's a method that people have been using, and it has been working. In fact, churches like Elevation Worship, Bethel Music, they mix in the box. And it sounds good, right? So, if there is no more question with people online, so we're going to stop here. This is 2:40. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining online. And I hope, did everybody register here? Okay, I have 20 people that register. Please, registration is just for us to keep track of, okay, how many people are participating. And I think next time I'll probably include emails, because this one we just put it public. Sometimes you don't want to put everything public. You just want people that register will have access to the link, and they'll be able to watch and things like that. But thank you very much. And once again, thanks to the leadership of the church for putting this together. Bruno will communicate next time, most likely next month. We may not be able to meet again this month, but it's something in my heart that I want us to do, and to get people that are ready to learn. So thank you for coming, and God bless you. I think we can go. Before you go offline, just play the video, and then just let the video play for a while, and then we shut it down. All right.